Can we read Genesis chapter 3, verse 15? Remember, we are talking about origin of sin and its consequences. And it's the whole of Genesis chapter 3 to chapter 11. But we are going to start with verse 3, chapter 3, verse 15. The consequence of sin, the first consequence. So there is enmity was put between the man and the serpent. The relationship between man and God became strained. Man started feeling guilty or ashamed. That's why they hid themselves, because they discovered they were naked. The man also accused God, saying that the woman you gave me is the one that gave him the forbidden fruit. Also, the woman also blamed the snake for misleading her. And then the serpent was cast above all animals. Can we read verse 16? Yes, so a woman was to feel pain during childbirth. That is another consequence of sin. The woman was put to be subordinate to man. The man was to toil and struggle to meet his needs. And then verse 17. So in verse 17, the earth itself was put under curse. Then verse 19. So death came upon man. That is verse 19. Man was dismissed from the Garden of Eden. Murderous feeling began to enter man's heart. That is chapter 4, verse 8. Can we read that?
Let us go out to the field. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him.
The lifespan of man was reduced. Chapter 6, verse 3. Yes, so the lifespan was reduced to 120. Also, Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 to 7. God confused man's language after the flood. Can you read each one verse? Verse 1 to 7, chapter 11, now.
Okay. Now the whole house had one language and few words.
And as men migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shin and settled there.
And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks, and burn them, and bitumen for more."
Then he said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city, and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make land for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth."
And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the sons of men had built.
And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what we will do. And nothing that we propose to do will not be easily forgotten."
Come, let us go down into the port, and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord gathered face of the earth, and they left off building the city. The city was called Babylon because they had a long roots and language to all people, and from there they started their all over the world.
So God confused man's language after the flood. So now we are going to talk about causes of sin according to biblical stories of creation. What causes sin? Number one is desire to be like God. Disobedience of man to God's instruction. So basically here you can say another cause of sin is disobedience. There is man succumbed to temptation. Lack of self-control also causes sin. And man was anxious to know what is right and wrong. That also is another cause of sin. So he wanted to know what is right and wrong. Also another cause of sin is human weakness. And lastly, there is jealousy. And jealousy is sin when Cain killed who? Abel. Because jealousy is the one that made Cain to kill Abel. African traditional understanding of evil. Most African communities believe that God did not create evil. And most communities attribute the origin of evil to evil spirits. They believe that evil comes from evil spirit. And they believe that evil is caused by who? Bad people. For example, sorcerers, witches, magicians. Also, others in other communities, they believe that evil is caused by ancestors who are angered. So basically, ancestors being angered, maybe if you don't give them a decent burial or you don't remember them. Sin also could come as a result of offending members of the community. That is what traditionally, in the African traditional society, believe that it can come as a result of offending members of the community. Also, parents and elders could also curse people. And then that is another evil, understanding of evil. And some communities believe that evil also comes about due to God being angered. Results of evil in traditional African society. Number one, sin causes death. It also causes diseases, or people can live with some of the misfortunes and sicknesses. Sin also causes drought and famine. We also believe that evil causes suffering, agony, or misery. It also causes unstable families. For example, you can find out that children are rebellious. It causes environmental disasters, floods, earthquakes. And it can also cause the birth of physically or mentally handicapped children. And lastly, it can cause war between clans, or disagreements or fighting between clans. How offenders are treated in the traditional African communities. So, how are they treated, or how are they punished? Number one, they are warned or pardoned. If, for example, you make a minor offense, you are warned or you are pardoned. That means you are forgiven. Number two, there is cleansing. You are cleansed with special medicine. You are also stoned to death. There is excommunication of the offender. Some are also cast, fined, and others are put to swear. They are told to swear that they won't do that particular evil again. So, the similarities between our African concept of evil and biblical concept of sin. What are the similarities? Tell me the similarities. Charity. Yeah.
In both results in separation between God and man. In both it includes sin from evil. In both it involves of sin and evil, suffering, death, and hardship.
Very good. So both agree that God does not create evil or sin. So in both, God is basically portrayed as good. And then in both cases, that is in the African concept of evil and the biblical concept of sin, is that sin is related to human disobedience or evil. Also, we believe that evil results in man's suffering, or sin results to man's suffering, also epidemics or calamities. And evil destroys the good relationship between man and God. Also, we believe that it brings death in both cases. So, when you're answering this question, you have to start with in both biblical and African concept of evil and sin. In both cases, it is shown to come from evil spirits, for example, Satan. So, we finished creation.